Welcome to another Pirkei Avot shir as we're making our way through the second Perek, and we're going to start today actually Mishna 6. Now you've heard right, it is Mishna 6. I know last time we did Mishna 4, but actually we did Mishna 4 and Mishna 5 together. So in most books I believe this comes out as Mishna 6. So we dedicate this episode to a memory of Levy ben Moshe Esther and Elisheva Yael bat Leah Levy, and also in memory of my own father Yehuda ben Moshe Esther. As we now hand over to Michael.
Thank you, Ramashiach. So this Mishnah is also Hillel giving more words of wisdom, and let's get started. Hu haya omer, he used to say, En bor yireh chetz. A brute is not sin-fearing. V'lo am haaretz chassid, nor is an ignorant person pious. V'lo habaishan lamed, nor can a timid person learn. V'lo hakpadan melamed, nor can an impatient person teach. V'lo kol hamara b'schora machkim, and nor will someone who engages too much in business become wise. In a place where there is no men, strive to be a man. So basically, this Mishnah goes from in ascending order the levels that a person must go through, or the levels before someone can become a Talmud Chacham. So it starts with a bor. A bor is mentioned in the Gemara and Mishnah as a hole, a pit in a street. It's the same. It's an empty human being. It's someone who is really a kind of a brutish person who makes no attempt whatsoever to correct his character traits. He's not willing. He feels himself perhaps slightly outside of the law. Laws don't apply to him because he doesn't want to be part of society. He makes no efforts to be part of the community, and is not sin-fearing in the least. As Hillel says, a brute is not sin-fearing. So this is the basic level of person that cannot be a Talmud Chacham. Let's move up a level. He says, nor is an ignorant person pious. So what does this mean? It's the upper level. He is saying that you have to have in yourself a basic understanding of Torah and mitzvot and the way of the world in terms of good traits. So you don't think that because you know a little bit about life that you're a chassid. You must first ground yourselves in the fundamentals of the Torah and spend time learning, and you can be on your way to being a chassid. And let's move on to the next level. Nor can a timid person learn. This is referring to someone who is a nervous student who's afraid to ask questions. If you want to develop your understanding of anything, if a teacher is teaching you and you don't understand something, if you sit there and just nod, you're going to remain ignorant, and you'll end up with the exam coming at the end of the year and you won't know what to answer because you never really understood what the teacher was teaching you. But if you are not timid, you'll put your hand up and you will ask the teacher, look, I don't understand this, please, if you don't mind, can you explain it to me again? The teacher, if he's a good teacher, will happily explain the thing again and again and again until you understand. A teacher is in a vocation because he likes to help people, or he or she likes to help people. So if you request help with understanding, explanation, they should be glad to spend time explaining things to you. So don't be nervous don't be timid if you're a student to ask questions if you don't understand.
Remember, we said in the previous Mishnah that there are, I can't remember if it was in the previous Mishnah or maybe even in one of my own shiurim on the parasha, where we said there are two relationships that are one party is never jealous of the other party. That is a rabbi to his student and a parent to his child. A rabbi is never jealous of his student because he teaches him and he's very happy that his student is learning. And the other one is a parent to a child, because a parent always schleps nachas from their child, presumably, hopefully, and therefore when the child does well, he becomes a high achiever in terms of Torah, in terms of or anything academic. The parent feels very proud and very accomplished, rightfully so, because we're talking about prodigies. So therefore, a teacher who's worth his salt, of course, will be happy to answer questions from the student, because he's in a position of motivating and instructing the student, so that ultimately the teacher will be proud of the student. So therefore, I think that fits in very well with what you just said about a bashful person cannot learn. You have to be receptive to the teacher, but at the same time, the teacher, by all rights, is going to be very helpful and forthcoming to the student.
I'd like to bring Rabbeinu Yonah's commentary on that, on the statement of a person prone to being ashamed cannot learn. He says, the trait of shame is good in every matter except for study, as the matter is stated in Tehillim, chapter 119, verse 46, and I quote, I will speak of your testimonies and not be ashamed in the presence of kings, end quote. As when David HaMelech was running away from Shaul and he stood in front of kings of the nations of the world, he was not ashamed of speaking words of Torah and of the commandments, even if they mocked him and ridiculed his words. As shame is not good in study. And also the students should not say, how can someone as foolish as I ask something of a great Torah sage who is so sharp in wisdom, whereas I have neither intelligence nor understanding? If this will be his doctrine all of the day, from where would wisdom come to him? And this is what the sages of wisdom, Alav Shalom, said in the book Choice Pearls. Ask the questions of fools and guard the guardings of the generous. This means to say, just like the generous, do not squander their money and do not hoard it, but give it away readily and willingly to the places that are fitting, as we have explained. So too with wisdom, speak about it with fit people at fit times, but not with every person, and not at a time when he knows that his words will not be heard. It comes out that you will say that it is for them to ask every question and not to be ashamed, so that he will learn the things. And the next concept, which is, nor can an impatient person teach. Obviously, a teacher has to be kind to his students and mustn't be short with them. If they don't understand something, the teacher should be trained in the responsibility of having to explain things multiple times to students. He should be ready to accept that sometimes he has to gruelingly teach someone who's not understanding of his teachings in a repetitive manner until that's his job, basically. What does Rabbeinu Yonah says? He says regarding an impatient teacher, it is not needed that a teacher be angry, nor that he be short of patience, but rather that he should be magnanimous and answer everything that he has that they ask. Even if they have difficulty in understanding his answer, he should review it for them until they come to the depth of the matter.
Amazing. It's like that famous story in the Gemara about Rav Preda, who had a student who was a little bit slow, let's say. He wasn't quick to learn, but he was willing to learn. Rav Preda would review the lessons 400 times to the student. I mean, it could be that 400 is lav dafka. It's not exact. That's normally the number 300 is either an exaggeration or sort of an arbitrary figure. Could be this is also an arbitrary figure, but you see the number 400 had a very significant effect on Rav Preda, as we're going to see. So it happened that every time he would review the lesson 400 times, and once he taught the student 400 times, and the student said, at the end of it, Rav Preda said, do you understand now? And the student said, no. So the Rav Preda said, why? And the student said, because I realized that you were in a hurry to go somewhere, you had to do certain mitzvah, and I felt affected, and I was distracted because I thought you kept wanting to go. So I wasn't concentrating. So Rav Preda sat down with this urgent matter hanging over his head, and he went over this and another 400 times. And because of this, he got a bat kol, came from Shemayim, a heavenly voice came from Shemayim, and asked this Rabbi Preda. He said, you've got a choice now. Either you can get 400 years extra life, or you and your whole generation will get Olam Haba. So Rav Preda said, very simple. We should all of us should get Olam Haba. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu then said, great, I'm going to give you that, plus I'm going to give you the 400 years. So we see Rav Preda lived a very long life because he had the ultimate patience, which is really what we have to be as teachers. I know I find that very challenging myself sometimes. But we just have to bear in mind this Mishnah, that if you want to teach people, they have to feel relaxed. You can set guidelines. You can tell your students, if you're giving a shir, have a pen and a paper ready and write down your questions. And after the allotted time, once you've got all the material, you've gone through all the material, then you can have questions. But even if you get questions during the shir, you really have to be patient. And I've seen some incredible patience from some incredible Rabbanim over the years, which has really taught me a lot. So I think that's, Okay, Michael.
Great. So the next concept, nor will someone who engages too much in business become wise. This is basically self-explanatory. There's not too much commentary on this, except for Rabbeinu Yonah, who says, since he is involved in his business all of the day and makes it fixed in and his Torah flexible, he will never become wise. So if someone regards his work as his primary vocation in life, he will perhaps leave his studying until the spare time that he has when he comes home from work. And at that time, it's almost useless because you're exhausted. You'd rather just relax. You'd rather eat your dinner. But if you make Torah your primary vocation and work a secondary, even though it's essential, your vocation is essential, make Torah the first thing you do in the day. Perhaps study for an hour in the morning, or do Daf Yomi after Shacharis, so that you have allotted your portion of study to the earlier part of the day, the primary part of your day, and leave the vocation to later on. But if you spend the whole day working and you try to gain wisdom in the evening or in whatever spare time you have, you'll never be a great chacham. That's basically the message. And the very last section of this Mishnah, it says, in a place where there is no men, strive to be a man. And it says in the Hebrew, refers to ish. Now ish, as we know, is the highest form in the Hebrew vernacular, the highest form of man. So where there is no ish, strive to be an ish, a high quality individual. So
we see Moshe Rabbeinu is called ish. It's Va'ish Moshe, another we call Adam, or words to that effect. So he was the paradigm ish.
Yeah. So Rabbeinu Yonah comments on this statement, in a place where there is no man, strive to be a man. He says, the early scholars, the Rishonim, explain, in a place where there is no man, to help you in the commandments and to also chastise you. Also strive to be a man. So straighten yourself so as to only do that which is good and straight in the eyes of Hashem. He also brings another explanation. If you see a generation where the Torah is lacking, stand up and strive with it, as it is said in Tehillim 119, verse 126, and I quote, it is time to do for the Lord. They have abrogated your Torah. What is the reason that it is a time to do for the Lord? Because they have abrogated your Torah, as its beginning is learned from its end, as it is found at the end of Berachot Daf 63 Amud Aleph. And we can also explain, in a place where there is no man, there is no man greater than you in wisdom. Strive to be a man, and do not refrain from becoming wiser, even if you cannot find a sage greater than you in your city, even if there is no one like you in that whole generation. See yourself as if you were in the generation of the sages of the Talmud, and you are with them in one place. Even if you acquire their level, think as if you are standing with the Nevi'im, up until Moshe, Olav Shalom. And when will you reach their level and their wisdom? And in this way, you will never slack from learning Torah, and you will improve your traits each and every day, as you will add to your wisdom, and you will be like a flowing spring. A lovely commentary on the concept of in a place where there is no man, strive to be a man.
Fantastic. Wow. What an insightful Mishnah. So that concludes today's recording. And next time we convene, we'll be back with the 7th Mishnah. And with this, we wish you a wonderful and productive week. See you soon.